Gods be with you, envoy.
First time in my life I ever really felt part of something. And now it's gone.
Envoy? You died. But you're here. Gods, am I glad to see you. Still can't believe you're alive.
Envoy, hello. I'm glad to see you on your feet. Kai.
Tej.
I'm surprised they let you in here.
I'm surprised you're still gainfully employed.
I didn't mean anything by it, Envoy. He's just curious company for you to keep.
Hey, somebody has to have the envoys back, because you all sure didn't.
No one expected the Envoy to get assassinated.
Exactly. Amateurs. Well.
Kai?
Come on, it's funny. Tej caused a ruckus last time he was slumming it at the Ballarrock. You were trying to kill a man, if I remember right. I had to put you outside.
You threw me into the canal.
You lived.
That water's filthy. I had the runs for 3 days.
Gods, Tej. The envoy doesn't need to know that.
The fellow cheated me. I couldn't let that slide. Or he'd think we were all marks.
It was over a dice game, right? Tej here has a gambling problem.
Great. Let's air all my troubles. Is there anything else?
The bartender sleeping with your girlfriend.
You're lying.
You sure about that?
We'll talk about this later.
I'm not breaking up with her for you. Just so we're clear.
That's more than enough. Thank you. Was there anything I could help you with, Envoy? The 7-foot-tall Aumaua with biceps the size of my head? No, I am not.
Flatterer. You know I'm barely over 6.5.
Naturally, Mom. How can I help you? What would you like to know? If you're looking for a particular year, the first thing you should know about Paradise is that this isn't the kind of place where the locals keep records. And though it might be considered a distant backwater by the rest of the world, this city is the height of civilization by the standards of the living lands. As for who calls this place home, I suspect you could find a criminal, confidence man, or prophet from every civilization in the world here.
Hey, come on. You're gonna give the envoy the wrong idea. We've got draft dodgers, courtesans, and revolutionaries, too. You know, all the fun people.
In any event, As far as I can tell, Paradise has been this way since its inception. Thus the eclectic display of architectural styles. If nothing else, this city is a reflection of the countless people who have passed through it on their way to the interior. Depends on who you ask. Ambassador Heelgard will tell you that our remit here is to establish a secure and orderly environment from which to engage in trade. Inquisitor Liudwin will tell you we're here to break the frontier.
So, which is it?
Why not both? That's where you come in. Whether you find your desires aligning with the ambassadors or the inquisitors, neither can succeed until the Dream Scourge is ended. We are only beginning to see its effects here in Dawnshore, but the closer to the center of the island you go, the worse it gets. That bear you and the ambassador encountered in the Strangle Route isn't even the worst of it, and the tide of this soul plague is rising higher every day. Look, for all that I complain about this backwater, there are good people here, same as anywhere else. People who want to be able to walk to the market in the morning for their bread and eggs and know they won't be mugged. People who like it when the mail comes on time and their skates are made from real copper and their neighborhood peeping Tom ends up in the stocks. Those people, good and honest people, who pay their debts and honor their contracts and remember to thank the gods, they like us a lot. The Resistance, as such, are largely a group of misfits and criminals intent on undermining the rule of law. They take out loans with small Adiran banking houses and do not pay them, then assault the bankers who attempt to collect. They agree to contracts with families in Adir seeking homes, and when their ships arrive, promptly abandon them. When we levy a small tax to fund the repair of city roads, they set our counting house on fire. And when our fishermen return to port, they board their ships and sink them.
That's certainly one way to characterize them. It's not exactly wrong, but it's not exactly right either.
For decades, people like them ruled this city through fear. We imposed order, and now they oppose us. You, unfortunately, were caught in the crossfire. By all means. There's a lot of ground to cover. Could you be more specific? Ah, the age-old question. Who's bigger? Adir is, naturally, by a wide margin. And were we at the Cartographers Guild in High Crown, I could show you on one of their globes. As it is, we must make do in the theater of our minds. The Living Lands are located in the far north of Aora. Adir is southwest of the Living Lands, situated along the equator. The Living Lands are more arid than Adir, and the island is more prone to storms. But its many deep valleys protect the various townships from the worst of the weather. Topographically speaking, the Living Lands are a place of extremes. Deep inland, mountains rise high enough to rival those of the White March, blanketed year-round in snow. While east of the volcano of Mount Forja is an acid sea that sinks far below the level of the ocean. The lands between them are riven with deep clefts in the earth and isolated by wastelands of sun-baked sand dunes. I'll share what I can. There is no singular authority in the Living Lands.
Not yet, anyway.
I shudder to think what the Living Lands would look like under your rule.
Well, to start, there'd be a lot more brothels.
Charming. Power is invested in the leaders of the various townships scattered across the island. The largest are Fjord, Thirdborn, and Solace, none of which, I will note, are as safe and orderly as Paradise. Fjord Messeverno is located in a valley known locally as the Emerald Stair, named for the terraced rice paddies that cover its hillsides. It is our closest neighbor. The city, if you can call it that, was founded 50 years ago by animancers from the Valian Republics. Apparently, the laws governing animancy weren't lenient enough in the Republics. So the city's founders came to the Living Lands, where they could practice their discipline more freely. Currently, Fjord is governed by a man named Ignacy Vidaro. Rather inept to hear the ambassador talk about him. Fjord's farmers supply most of the grain and vegetables we eat here in Paradise. Or it did. Their shipments have been infrequent lately. Something about a blight in the fields. In any event, I believe that covers Fjord. The Valian Republics are a collection of city-states in the Eastern Reach, southeast of our former colony, the Deerwood. The Republics began life as colonies of the Grand Empire of Valia, hence the name. But as Grand Valia's economy collapsed, well, the colonies saw an opportunity to escape the influence of the Empire of Origin, and they seceded, much as the Deerwood did from Adir. Now a mature confederation in their own right, the Republics have recently indulged their own expansionist ambitions in the Deadfire Archipelago. Through their merchants in the Valian Trading Company, the Republics will sell you anything you could ever wish to buy.
Up to and including people.
We should count ourselves lucky to have had no interest in the living lands. In a struggle between our Emperor and the Republic's great dukes, well, I doubt we would come out on top. But if anyone asks, I was not the one who told you that. Everything you need to know about Thirdborn is in its name. It was founded by the Thirdborn children of Rawatai, Navy dropouts, smugglers, and hands for hire. Almawa and Orleans, mostly.
Home, sweet home.
You're free to go back any time you like.
I like my current circumstances just fine, thanks.
They are people, in short, who couldn't cut it in the civilized world and had to make room on the margins. Unfortunately, they are currently besieged by the Dream Scourge. We have sent some troops to lend what help we can, and the mayor, Temerity, was appropriately grateful, but I don't know how long they'll hold out. Rawatai is one of the old empires, every bit as storied as Grand Valia or our native Adir. If Adir is to the southwest of the Living Lands, Rawatai is to the southeast. And unlike our home, their small continent is racked by terrible storms. This is due, or rather, was due, to the island's proximity to Andra's mortar, the unending super hurricane that once hid the ancient city of Ukaizo. Rawatai is largely peopled by Almawa, descended from those who fled the Deadfire Archipelago centuries ago, when Andra pulled the moon, Ioni Brather, into the sea. They are an aggressive, militant culture, and personally I find their obsession with gunpowder rather quaint. They are also our chief rivals on the world stage.
I don't think they see it that way.
No?
Well, as far as Navy brass is concerned, Adir doesn't really rate.
Now you're just making things up.
Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but we don't think about you at all.
Solace is, what is there to say, really?
Yeah, they tend to have that effect on people.
The trouble is, I don't know much about Solace. Nobody does. They are an isolationist community of Pargrunan dwarves who live in the forbidding ways of Galawain's tusks. They don't let outsiders into their lands, and they don't let their people out of them.
Some folks get out from time to time, but they can't ever go back. And the ones who survive aren't eager to talk about their experiences.
People aside, the land itself is incredibly hostile. The island's volcano, Mount Forja, rests at the heart of the region, and it's recently become active. Half the land is lava rock, and the other half is, well, literally lava. I don't know why anyone lives there. I have to assume they're all insane.
You have no idea.
Naturally. The Pargrunan are a unique community of mountain dwarves originating in Old Valia. As a people, they've made their name as explorers, builders, miners. No doubt you've seen their ruins in your travels, here, back home in Adir, and all across the world. They maintain a rich tradition of oral storytelling, chanted magics, and ritual carving, which they take great pains to record and transmit across their various communities. Even the most physically isolated Pogroom is not alone. Somewhere, one of their people is thinking of them and planning an expedition. Abidan must cherish them.
You sound like you admire them.
I suppose I do. Of course. Consider yourself lucky. Inquisitor Ludwine is the commander of the Steel Garrote in Paradise. Were you to ask her, she'd say she keeps the peace. But she doesn't keep it so much as prosecute it. As ruthlessly as the ambassador will let her. She's also a veteran of the Steel Garrote's campaign in the Deathfire, where she died.
She's a Death Guard. Well, that explains a lot.
I don't know what happened to her there, but I suppose Wodica wasn't done with her yet. I only met her once. She was a mid-level member of the Steel Garrote then, chasing Oathbreakers who'd fled Adiran law. She'd come back to the Imperial Archives to borrow a map to a place called Oathbinder's Sanctum. I remember she was furious because the map was quite poor. She worried about finding the place, about properly executing her duty to her god. She wanted, I think, to do a good job. So, while clearly she has changed, in some sense, I'd say she's much the same. Death Guards are surpassingly rare. Some of the secretaries who traveled with our dignitaries in the Deathfire spoke of one named Iser, a devotee of Berith, who guards the hanging sepulchres there. But I've heard of no others except those I've read about in the histories, or, as you say, in stories. They are people, most often paladins or priests, so devoted to a cause that they simply refuse to pass on to the wheel when they die. Their soul haunts their body. The passion required to sustain them devours their flesh, and they swiftly turn to bone. I've never read a history nor tale of a death guard that did not end with them going quite mad. When they lose their capacity to care for anything but their cause, they cannot love. And when they cannot love, they cannot be merciful. And so everything before them becomes only an obstacle. Think upon your promises and die. That's the litany of the Steel Garrote, usually said right before they kill you. They're an order of paladins born and bred in Adir, though clearly they've found plenty of work beyond our borders. Their remit is simple but comprehensive. They punish all who break their oaths. In practice, that has historically meant contracts. One lord or merchant will hire the Steel Garrote to bring a duplicitous rival to justice.
Fun bunch. What are they doing in Paradise?
Since the events in the Deathfire, their operations have expanded. The Steel Garrote has always been associated with Wodica. Now, they are explicitly her order. And they go wherever Wodica's priests, or Wodica herself, believes there is a need for them to go. The Living Lands are a dangerous, lawless frontier in sore need of order. Thus, they are here. Or so the Steel Garrote say. Do you think so? I've always found her inflexibility comforting. Wodica's edicts are clear. If you obey her laws, pursue justice, punish the guilty, and give fealty to the Emperor, then you have pleased her, and I aim to please. But Wodica does not trust. She demands that you declare yourself for her again and again. Her every request is a test, and her every test is an opportunity to disappoint her. I appreciate a god who makes you work for their grace. I don't want anything given to me for free. I'm an open book. I trust whomever told you to consult a watcher also told you to avoid the one in the city. She is a liar and a thief.
Oh, did she take your money?
No. Anyway, watchers are individuals capable of perceiving souls. The soul may be in a living body, or it may simply be lingering, waiting to pass into the in-between. In either case, interacting with a soul allows a watcher to glimpse a person's past lives or their most deeply buried memories. Watchers are incredibly rare, and in Adir, highly controlled. Many people wish to know who they were in a previous life, and do not like what they learn. The smart ones stay hidden. They do not announce their powers, perhaps not even to themselves. Even a careful watcher risks inadvertently revealing themselves by knowing something they shouldn't know. Of the ones that are public, little is concretely known. But we hear things. They make good judges in Wurka's courts, so long as they're controlled. The lords, it's rumored, buy and sell them to collect blackmail on their enemies. But I suspect many watchers are imprisoned or executed, or simply kill themselves. A watcher doesn't need your cooperation or consent to read your soul. They could learn everything about you, terribly damaging things about your parentage, for example, or things you did in a past life, without you ever knowing. You see how this could threaten the established order, undermine our betters' right to rule.
Yeah, but that's just one side to it. Imagine how a watcher feels, knowing what a threat they are to the status quo. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be keen on kings and emperors wanting me dead. Sounds like a lot of hassle.
Don't sell yourself short, Kai. I don't doubt you're an expert in people wanting you dead.
You're not wrong.
I rarely am. In any case, the Watcher is fundamentally a tragic figure. Of the few that survive our world, most are destined to go mad. Yes and no. So far as I understand it, a Watcher is born a Watcher. But it takes an event, often something shocking or traumatic, to bring a Watcher's powers to the fore. So you may be a Watcher, or I may be, or Kai, and we might not even know.
Well, the Watcher of Cadnua is legendary. It was their castle Aethys destroyed when he began his campaign of terror in the Dead Fire. Oh, by the Queen, I hope I get to meet them someday. In terms of local interest, you'll have heard of Runid, of course. And there was Ida. You may not know about her. She was a Watcher from the Living Lands. I believe she was an Orlan. She must have died, 150 years ago, slain by a great serpent gods treat kindly with her soul. Doubtless there are others, but most don't meet a good end.
I don't think so.
The envoy is right. You're basically a Watcher encyclopedia.
Why should a secretary be limited to knowledge of filing systems and how the ambassador takes his tea? I was a boy once. Watchers were a special interest of mine when I was young.
He sounds defensive to me. Does he sound defensive to you, envoy? You get cold feet just when the interrogation starts getting fun. But you're right. I know you're not a Watcher, Teach. You'd be better at dice.
Apology accepted. Of course.
Well, you'll notice I'm nearly always here. If that man sleeps, I don't know about it. He wouldn't say, but I believe he relied on the Claviger far more than he lets on. And without the Claviger's steady hand at the rudder, the ambassador's struggling just to bail water from the sinking ship that is Paradise.
Claviger Aemon might have tolerated a little more chaos than the ambassador liked, but he kept this place humming. He's not someone you can easily replace, and not with one man alone.
It's a difficult job. The pressure sometimes gets the better of him. But if he loses his temper now and then, I can't blame him for it. Better him than me. He doesn't know what to do with himself. You know, in our first days here, he'd often walk to the end of the docks at sunrise. The work was done, the embassy was closed, and he'd still be wearing the same clothes he'd slept in at his desk. And he'd just stare out over the sea. He always seemed dissatisfied back then. I suppose, years later, he still does.
be serious. Most of us here didn't get sent to the frontier because we were anybody's favorite. The longer I'm here, the more likely the people who matter are to forget me. And I'd actually like to get back to High Crown someday. Get married, have a few kids, take the civil exams, and settle into a permanent clerkship.
I guess there are worse ways to spend a life.
Like rotting in this embassy. By all means. Should you ever need me, I will be here. Safe travels, Envoy.
Don't let the walls fool you. This city's as dangerous as the wilds.
Envoy, is it really you?
I can't believe you're alive. When they dragged you to Liviana's clinic, I assumed the worst. How do you feel? Your fealty to our homeland conquers death itself. What an inspiration. But we'll return to the topic of your untimely demise shortly. Our first order of business is your purpose here in the Living Lands. You said you had a missive for me from the Emperor? Very good. I'm eager to see what our Emperor intends. Now, His Majesty names you a loyal servant of the Adiran Empire, and an extension of the throne's authority. Thank goodness, at least someone understands the gravity of our situation. With that, I had better news for him. You've seen how wild the Living Lands has become, both in nature and in politics. Sometimes I think the island has a mind of its own. No sooner had you arrived than you found yourself at the center of our troubles. At this point, I can't rule anything out. We're in uncharted waters. This embassy has no shortage of political foes, but the Dream Scourge is what keeps me up at night. You've seen firsthand what it can do in nature. We can't let it reach the cities. No doubt some superstitious peasant toiling in the fields. The Living Lands has plenty of both. Inquisitor Ludwig thinks the plague is a distraction. She's more concerned about these local rebels fighting against the Empire. They were paradisans once, law-abiding laborers. Now, they're fugitives and oath-breakers hiding amongst the populace. They've sabotaged our work, killed our soldiers, and the final straw, attacked you out in the open.
All the more reason to strike first, or so the thinking goes.
Whatever their reason, we have to retaliate for the good of the Empire. I won't lie to you, Envoy. Our position is tenuous. If we can't even defend ourselves, how are we to defend the Living Lands? But defend it we must, for the sake of everyone who calls this island home. Inquisitor Ludwig demands that someone hang for the attempt on your life. These Paradisian rebels must face justice. Ludwine goes where she likes, haunting the living lands like a vengeful spirit. She'll reappear when she chooses, and not a moment sooner. Let's make sure to give her some good news for a change.
Not many get a chance to solve their own murder, you know. I know someone who could help. A dwarven tracker named Marius. Kith or beast, there's little he can't find. He's staying at the Grinning Ballarrock, not far from Liviana's infirmary. We just take the main road east to the market, then head down the stairs and cross the canal. Rough part of town, even by the standards of Paradise. I can tell you're skeptical, but remember that you're an outsider here. And a lot of Kith aren't exactly thrilled to see so many adherents in their midst.
New weeds, a new beast in the tall grass. Predator or mate?
As you've seen firsthand. You could use some local help, especially if we really are after Paradisans.
I suggest you recruit as many allies as you can, but choose carefully. They, like you, will represent the Empire. But before we can send you off to parts unknown, we need assurances from the local healer that you're fully recovered. After all, you survived a brush with death. The health of your body is one thing, the health of your soul is another. An unusual course of treatment, but who am I to argue? Remember, the assassin is out there. You have the element of surprise. I suggest you use it. We'll talk more of the Dream Scourge when you return. Until then, Envoy.
How about we start with Marius at the Grinning Ballarrock? Besides, I could use a drink after all this.
I can't tell you how grateful I am that you survived the attempt on your life. But let's not dwell on unpleasant matters.
You've got some god looking out for you.
You're the one they all crow about, eh? Best hunter and guide in all of Dawnshore?
Just Dawnshore? Phew, must be slipping.
You just... Ha! The mighty Marius, deep in his cups, ready to take on the deadliest prey, providing they're asleep at the time.
Right. Take another sip of Makul. Rude not to finish a drink someone bought for you.
No wonder you're hiding behind a mug. You're too worried about being polite to survive out there.
The dwarf there is Marius. Best tracker I know.
I heard you're from Solace Keep. How great a survivor could you be, hiding behind stone walls all your life?
You don't know anything about me, you Adiran Nimdut. So maybe go back and take another blessed day sip.
But here you are. Tell me, how does one get kicked out of a place that never lets anyone leave?
Duktetragu Sakasapt Jitule. You wanna talk so much, I'll cut you a second mouth across your throat.
I'm with you. Ready to crack some heads.
You stay out of it, Envoy. This isn't your problem. I haven't stopped an Imperial official since I left Adir. I guess it's about time I do another one. Come on, Maili. Let's show these people why you don't pick fights in the Ballarok. Show me
We got him!
Thanks, Marius. More blood to clean.
Come on, Makul. You know you love it.
I was just getting warmed up.
Well, that was something. Haven't been to a bar fight in a while. Never really saw the point.
Marius, this is the infamous Adiran envoy. Envoy? Marius.
Well, any friend of Kai's is definitely a... person. I need to see the scene of the crime, over by the town gates. I promise there's something left there we can use to track them. Then they wouldn't need much of a reason to go after an Adiran official. Plenty of stale water there. Still, it's dangerous to make assumptions based on stereotypes. We need more of a trail to go on. We'll figure this out, Makul. Don't you worry.